Our guest today is Pawani Khandelwal, the founder and CEO of Aatmnirbhar, which is a social venture enabling the possibility of daily mobility for women. Not only this, Pawani also runs two non-profit organizations. There are some things which lose all attention because of the severe stereotyping we are subjected to and don't attempt to do enough to understand the serious implications that has. For example, we treat masculinity as mobile and femininity as static. Individuals such as Pavni have the boldness to attack this categorization. Atmanirbhar, her company, has demonstrated success by training more than 9,000 women in more than 12 tier 2 and 3 cities to drive two-wheelers, thus enhancing participation from women towards social growth, equality, and development. Head on over to atmanirbhar.com to look at Pavni and her team's story. Today, we are here to talk to Pavni about a very sensitive subject, a subject which is not so welcome to talk about. It is stigmatized, and that is mental health issues. Pavni has faced mental health issues since the last 10 years or so, from the age of about 17. Let us talk to Pavni to understand how she braved this, how this helped her to discover her inner calling. Pavni, a big hug and welcome to Small Big Wins.
Thank you so much, Harsh. And thank you for making this platform comfortable enough for me to be, actually able to even think that I can talk about this issue here. There have been a lot of times when I've been asked to talk about this issue on public platforms, and never did I ever feel as comfortable enough to think that I can actually talk about it. And this is the first time that I'll be talking about this on a public platform. And it's only because you have provided me that safety net. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
They are very big words, Pavni. I hold them in full trust and value what you have said. Thank you so much. People who want to know more about the tangible work which you are doing can always look at Atmanirbhar and they can reach
Correct.
over to you. So let's dive into the main topic of our conversation today. I want
Yes.
to start by asking, when was the first time the mental health problems were noticed? Who noticed it? And what were the first reactions, the first steps which were taken?
The first time I felt that there was something that was of serious concern was in 2012. I had just come to my 12th class. I was living in Kota and I was preparing for IIT. And this started with certain bouts of anxiety, a feeling of anxiousness. And I thought it's very common. Generally, you always feel it. I had always felt it throughout my life at different stages, before going to a stage, before a basketball match started, before my board exams. So I thought it's something similar to that. And maybe it will just go away in a few days. But then a few days passed by and it didn't go away. And then a couple of weeks passed by and it didn't go away. On the other hand, what happened is that it actually started manifesting for longer and longer durations of time. So initially when it started, I would just feel butterflies for a couple of hours for absolutely no reason. And during those couple of hours, I was struggling to breathe properly. I could feel that all my muscles were very numb and very tight. And I thought that eventually subdue within a couple of days or weeks. Instead of subduing within a couple of weeks, I was at a state where the physical manifestation of my anxiety had gone to such levels that I could not eat properly. I could not sleep properly. I could not talk. I started stammering. I could not make notes during my classes. I would keep shivering. And that is when I realized, okay, something is wrong. This is not that anxiety that you have uh, when you go for an exam, or when you go to the stage to give a speech, or this is not the one that happens before the final basketball match. This is something that I need to probably visit a health expert for. And that is when I reached out to my parents and I told them that, listen, something's wrong with me. I've been feeling anxious, but this is not the normal anxious. There is something more to this. And that is when the first time we visited a psychiatrist. It all actually accelerated very quickly, being absolutely normal. to, within a few weeks, feeling physically handicapped, because mentally, emotionally, I felt absolutely normal. There were no particular triggers, or there were no thoughts that were bothering me. Generally, in anxiety or in depression or any kind of mental health issues, there are generally certain thoughts that are bothering you, because of which anxiety manifests. In my case, it was completely opposite. There was physical manifestation that occurred first, and it was so strong that it hampered my daily life. And that is when I decided to go to a doctor and seek expert advice.
This started when you were in Kota.
Yes, I was in Kota,
And your parents live in Mathura.
My parents lived in Mathura.
So, how was this gap bridged? You were in school at that time. So, did you take a break and you went purposefully and told them? How did it really happen?
To be honest, I was doing really good in my life at this point. I was in the top 20 batch in Kota. I had amazing friends, people who are till date very close friends of mine. I share deep connections with these people. Yeah, everything was really good in life. So anxiety striking from nowhere, it just did not add up. Like, that's the only thing that did not add up. Everything's going great in life, and then all of a sudden this happens, and it just kept getting worse every day. Thankfully, I had local guardians in Kota who were also very supportive and who were understanding. I think more than understanding, I would say that everybody in my family was willing to understand. Nobody in my family has mental health issues. Everybody in my family is into business, and most of them have not even gone to college. Okay, my dad is barely a high school pass. My mom's a graduate, and they really do not have much understanding of what mental health issues are. But at every point, they were willing to understand. So when I first called them and said that something's happening, they did not come to me with questions like, "Why? What are you thinking? It will go away. Don't worry too much. Don't do this. Don't." No, they didn't do all of that. They asked me, "Okay, tell us, what are you feeling?" And they came with an open heart and said that, "Okay, we are as clueless as you are, but we are in this together, and let's figure this out together." So there were no preconceived notions. They never really came to me saying that, "Do you think that this could just be you stressing about things? Or maybe why don't you just try to calm down, go for a vacation, go try to meditate, do this, do that?" No, they told me, "Okay, maybe this will feel better, this will feel better." But at the same time, they were very open to trying to understand, saying that we do not know what is going on right now, and let's be on this journey together. Let's learn together what will help you feel better, what will not. And because of that, even though they were not physically with me in Kota throughout, I always felt very supported. I always knew that they were only a call away. And they always created this safety for me, that no matter what happened in the world, I could always come back to them. There was a point when my parents said, when anxiety happens, anxiety generally means that, the dictionary term means that you worry too much about the future. Now, in my case, that was not the case, but it was still happening. And the least that somebody can do to trigger it more is make you more worried about the future, right? Oh my God, this is happening to you now. What will happen? What will happen to your 12? What will happen to your IIT course? What will happen to this? What will happen to that? My parents literally told me, "It's okay if you don't study in the future at all. We are okay with it. We don't worry. We don't care what tomorrow is going to be like. You want to be at home for the rest of your life, it's fine. It's still going to love you the same." So no, there was not even a single day when, because of the people in my life, because of my family, because of my friends, I had to worry about my 12th exams or my IIT exam or other things. I could literally only focus on myself and dealing with my mental health. And that is the best kind of support, I think, that anybody can give to anyone while they are struggling through any kind of a mental health issue.
Right. It is in one way a difficult thing to understand because your parents, you said, are very, let us say, only reasonably educated or do not have high education. They come from a very small town. So even the exposure is not there to big places or people who are very educated or in high places. And they had this approach. So let me ask you, how were you grown up as a child? What was the environment like? What was their style of growing you up?
So technically, I come from a Banya family. And most of the women in my family were married by the age of 21, 22. My extended family is also to an extent quite conservative, but thankfully that's not how my parents were. And they were always very rational in approach, okay, and they always made me ask a lot of questions. So if they say anything, they would always make me, if anybody tells you to do anything, ask them, why am I supposed to do this? Why should I be doing it this way? And I think it hit them when I started asking them the same question. Why are you telling me to do this? Why should I do it this way? So then the joke, so it basically came a full circle with themselves. But yes, that's the kind of environment I was grown into, where I was told to not accept anything just because I'm being told to do it. My dad has especially encouraged me to be really bold without telling me to be bold. When I first learned how to drive, my dad made me change, and this was when I was just 16. Okay, and we had a driver, everything, but he still made me. He told the driver to sit, and he said, before you take the car out of the garage, you need to change all the 4 tires. And then he kept a baseball bat in that car. Which was the best part. So I used to drive a car with a baseball bat in the boot of my car. So they always made me feel very independent. They grew me in a way wherein they said that, you have to be bolder, but at the same time, we're here for you. So the worst case scenario, you call us. So yes, I've tried to fight most of my battles myself, but I've always known that my parents are still there. But like worst case scenario, they're always there. And I'm very grateful to have been born in such an environment, to be honest.
Indeed, really so heartening to listen to this. But बात बताइए, ये बेसबॉल बैट क्या पिटाई के लिए था लोगों की?
Apparently. Thankfully, I never had to use it.
All right. I think you have answered it in some ways, but let me still dig a little deeper. You were still in school when this happened. Did you have challenges with fellow students, teachers?
To be very honest, I did not have as many challenges in school with fellow teachers and students as much as I did in college. And this is very surprising. In Kota, all my teachers were very understanding, even though they were very competitive when it came to academics. But the moment they felt that I'm feeling uncomfortable in the class, even though it was the middle of the class, they would just very compassionately tell me to go home, rest. They would tell me, okay, we'll take classes for you later. So they were very cooperative, and so were the fellow students. I was actually surprised when I was not met with a similar treatment in college. I was rather met with a lot of rumors that were spread about me. There was a lot of stigma about mental health when I was in college. And there was a very big difference in the kind of people that were in both of these places. Most of the people when I was in school, when I was studying, taking classes in resonance, came from middle class or moderate socioeconomic backgrounds from tier 2, tier 3 cities. On the other hand, when I went to college, they were all people from very high income families, very educated families, highly literate upper class, tier 1 cities, metro cities. And I was very shocked to actually be met with not a very compassionate environment in college, rather being mocked. In fact, I was actually bullied in college. So somebody like me who used to carry a baseball bat around in her car was bullied in college. And that's just how the kind of environment was in college. And it was very surprising. And because of that, I actually stopped going to college and I started working within the first semester. I can't go to a place where I'm met with so much judgment. And yeah, I just stopped going to college after that. I also did not make a lot of friends from college, despite of being a very social person throughout my life. And I found entrepreneurship to be my true calling in college and started a startup.
You completed your degree, but you stopped attending college and you ventured into your own startup at that time.
Correct, to an extent, yeah. I only went to college to give exams and like to get through the bare minimum attendance.
Understand. So Pawani, it's 10 years that you are facing these issues, and you have done a lot in these 10 years, which is available in the public space of what you have achieved. But what were some of your most challenging times in these 10 years, particularly because of mental health issues?
I think the first 2 years were extremely challenging for me because this is a period where I was really taken by surprise as to what was happening to me. Everything's going good, and then all of a sudden life takes you by surprise, and you're just trying to figure out this puzzle as to what is happening? Why is this happening to me? And the physical manifestation of my anxiety, like I said, made things really, really bad. I was a very active kid, teenager throughout my schools. I used to play a lot of sports. I used to participate in all activities. I used to work very actively in community building activities. I used to run my own NGO in class 7th. So throughout my school, I used to teach poor kids. I was also very good with academics. I was always the first. I topped my board exams. And then all of a sudden, when anxiety happened, I became this very lifeless zombie sort of a person. And there was a time when I was taking up to 20 pills in a day, and these were all sedatives. I couldn't even ride my scooter. I couldn't walk properly. I couldn't take notes. It's very small things that my body wanted to do. I couldn't do them with my body. I couldn't eat, sleep properly. I couldn't talk to people. And I love doing that. I love talking to people. I love making friends. I couldn't do that. I would often feel very embarrassed in public spaces because I was just not being myself. The cherry on the cake was panic attacks. So within 3 to 4 months of dealing with anxiety, I used to have at a time 2 to 3 panic attacks in a day. And panic attacks can be really scary. A panic attack might just last 10 minutes, but you think about it throughout the day. It is so scary. The hangover of a panic attack is scarier than a panic attack itself. So this phase of my life was, I think, really difficult. And I was supposed to write my board exams in 2013, but because my muscles used to be so numb, I could not even write one single page, forget alone an exam. I decided to take a gap year, and I actually took my board exams in 2014. And very surprisingly, again, my entire family, my friends, there was no judgment around taking a gap year, saying ki she's not writing her board exams this year, and that's all. Nobody asked for explanations. Okay, fine, she'll write it next year. So what? Big deal. Nobody really made a big fuss about it, and that was a very comforting feeling for me because I was already feeling ashamed of myself for not being able to take my board exams. Right, board exams till date are a very big deal. However, I would say that these 2 years were also the years when I took the most drastic decisions of my life that really changed the course for me, deciding to not pursue engineering and rather pursue BBA and be an entrepreneur, deciding to travel. Throughout my gap year, I chose to travel a lot, and I did a lot of solo traveling. And this could only happen because life was very challenging at that point. It could not have hit, like, it was already at an all-time low. And the only thing that kept me going was I need to get through the day. That is my small win. My small win is I need to get through today. I don't care about how tomorrow is going to be, but today is pathetic, and I need to get through today. We'll think about tomorrow when it comes. And that is how I just kept going day on day, surviving through all the medicines, sleepless nights, panic attacks. I used to eat a lot of custard actually because of all the medicines. There is nothing else I could eat. So I could only drink beverages, okay? And I needed sweet things because from all the medicines, my mouth used to taste so bad all the time. So just that's how I got through it. Custard and the motivation to get through today was what kept me going. And I didn't even realize how I ended up making these big decisions wherein I don't want to pursue engineering. This was never meant to be for me. My inner calling was always entrepreneurship and doing something for the community. And yes, I think at the end of the day, I'm just really grateful that these 2 years could get so challenging. Had they been a little less challenging, I would have probably not made as drastic decisions that I made. Choosing to just decide to go to Leh Ladakh overnight all by myself. And I was just 18 years old. I don't think like you.
This was that Royal Enfield surgeon?
Yeah.
Okay, you must tell our listeners a little more about this.
So these 2 years really made me very courageous and strong. And they made me ponder that in every situation, always think what is the worst that can happen. And I felt that the worst has already happened. There's nothing that can happen anymore. So let's just do it. And even till today, anytime we are in my teams, we are in a situation where we feel that, okay, this is challenging, this is risky. I always tell them to ask, okay, what is the worst that will happen? Tell me that. If we can afford the worst, then we're doing this.
These first 2 years, which were the most challenging, but these were also the years where you took the break year from your board exams, and you were partly in Kota, and then partly you were traveling, and you were traveling solo.
Yes.
And you were on a bike. You were traveling on a bike.
I was.
So what did you do? You took a bike in Mathura and you just went to Leh Ladakh on that bike? What did you do?
So actually, before my Ladakh trip, I had never rode a bike. I had rode a bike, but I never rode a Royal Enfield. And somebody in my family had a Royal Enfield and had always been fascinated by it. And I told him like a couple of times that, listen, I know how to ride a bike. So then when I went to Ladakh, I had a lot of these shops where they would just rent out bikes and these bikes were parked outside. So it's my first day in Ladakh. And I go to a bike shop and I said, what does it require for me to rent a bike? He said, nothing. We need these documents and that's it. And I was confident that I can ride. It's a 200 kg bike. What is the worst that will happen? गिरी तो जाएंगे, लग जाएगी. हड्डी वड्डी टूट जाएगी, हॉस्पिटल्स हैं, थोड़ा डिले हो जाएगी फ्लाइट, मतलब that's the worst that will happen. So I decided to just rent a bike, and for the next 7 to 8 days I was roaming all around in Ladakh on that Royal Enfield. And I think it's one of the best times that I've had in my life, in the sense that it has made me feel very powerful in all the moments that have come again in my life. There was this moment that I remember when I fell down. So bike चलाते चलाते मैं बहुत दूर पहुंच गई, and Ladakh is huge and it's very sparsely populated. So there are areas where for miles you will not see anybody. You won't even see a dog, like a cattle, nothing. You won't see anything. So I was on one such road and I'm riding and I fell down. And I'm lying on the road, the bike's on me, and my knee is bleeding, and I'm just lying there. I'm looking to my left, I'm looking to my right, there is nobody. Then I just get up and then I'm just looking at the bike. Acha, like, how can I lift this up? I don't think so. Can I? But then there was the first time when I just tried lifting the bike and it just lifted. I don't know, like it felt like something in the nature was really helping me lift it. It happened so smoothly and it made me feel so powerful that this is my first day. I'm riding a bike. I fall down. It's a 200 kg bike. I lifted it so easily. And maybe there are going to be more challenging situations in life coming forward, but all I have to do is try. And I think it will just happen as smoothly as this did. And that has really changed my perspective of looking at problems, being in stressful situations throughout my life, and just heading into problems with a we'll see what happens approach, or what's the worst that will happen approach.
What's the worst that will happen? Fantastic. And in this trip in Leh Ladakh, it was an unplanned trip. You never knew the next day where you are going and where you're going to stay.
Yes, completely unplanned.
I really want to ask you, and I know your mantra of what is the worst that will happen, but there was no fear.
No. Honestly, if I were to go now with the same approach, I would probably have fear. But at that point, like I said, the worst was already happening. The challenge for me was to get through the day. That's all I cared about. And if living fearlessly, riding my bike, not caring where I'm going to eat, where I'm going to stay, who I'm going to meet. And I made a lot of friends in Ladakh. I made friends with a receptionist at a local restaurant where I used to eat a lot. I made friends with my guest house daughter. The two of us used to chat so much. So I made unexpected friends. And, I was actually met with people who really cared about me, even there. Like, I was there only for 7 days, but I was received with a lot of love. It used to get really cold, but the place where I was staying, these people every night would check on me. Are you okay? Are you feeling cold? Do you need a water bottle? Do you need a hot bottle? So even that love and compassion did take away the fearlessness to quite an extent from me.
Phenomenal, Pawani. What has been the stage of mental health?
So it started, I would say, from feeling that this is nothing, like this is just, never could have ever imagined 10 years back that I'm going to have to live with this for 10 years or probably the rest of my life. It's like a stranger all of a sudden. I personify my anxiety a lot. It is almost like dealing with another person living in your body, trust me. And there are times when you see eye to eye with each other. There are times when you don't see eye to eye with each other at all, and you're in a constant conflict with yourself. So initially it's like a stranger coming into your life and you're like, okay, maybe they're just relatives, okay, so they'll stay here for a couple of days, and you don't really like those relatives, but then their stay is just lingering on. It's going on, it's not ending. So initially it was that. It was only when the physical manifestation started, I started taking a lot of medicines, that it hit me hard that okay, this is not going anytime soon, this is chronic, this is a severe illness. It I was never dealing with a very mild form of anxiety. Like I said, within the initial couple of weeks my health really deteriorated very badly, and I was dealing with very severe symptoms of anxiety. The second stage that occurred was where I was when it hit me that this is severe, this is chronic, there's so many medicines that I have to take, 20 medicines a day, medicines for everything, medicines to sleep, this, that. I just felt like staying in bed all day, and I would just keep pitying myself. कि मेरे साथ ही क्यों हो रहा है? Why is this happening to me? What did I do? And that is a horrible place to be, pitying yourself, and especially when you've always taken charge of your life. So even though I was 17, 18, but before that also, when you asked me what is the kind of environment that I was grown into, I was grown into an environment where I was always encouraged to make my own decisions. No decisions were ever just put on me that this is what you have to do. So living a life where I was driving my own life to anxiety was driving my life. I really got into a stage where I would just keep pitying myself all day, and it went on for quite some time, for like at least a couple of months. I would just be in bed all day eating custard, pitying myself. And then finally I think there was this realization, okay, how long is this going to go? It's been a few months, it's not getting better, we need to fight this. So all of a sudden it's like me and my anxiety, we are in a boxing ring, and I'm just like constantly fighting it. So I did these crazy things. It's traveling, for example, was actually, I would say, a form of fighting my anxiety. It was not a form of completely accepting it. It was a form of fighting it. It was a form of running away from it. It was a form of living one day at a time, feeling free, liberated, doing things that keep me distracted. And I would say what really fought it, I wouldn't have known what it takes to trigger it, how powerful can it be, or how exhausting also it can be as a process to constantly keep fighting it. You can do it for a couple of months. You can't keep doing it forever. You can't just keep running and doing, how to put it, just like crazy things every day. And this went on for, I would say, at least 3-4 years in my life. It has actually been just very recently that I've actually come to a understanding with what it is, what really triggers it, what keeps it at bay. It's I can take my time, right, to comprehend it.
Yeah. जो आ रहा है मन में बोल दो, इतना सोचो मत.
The process of understanding, I think, really starts when you stop questioning it. I think we were having this conversation earlier also, that when you truly want to understand somebody or something, you will have to stop questioning the intent and just accept it for how it is. And the understanding phase really started when I completely stopped questioning everything around. Why is it happening? Why is it happening to me? What can I do to make it better? What will happen next? What will happen in my life? So all worries, stress. It was only when I completely stopped questioning it that I started understanding it. Like it started opening up to me. When I stopped asking questions, that is when it started opening up to me that this is what. So it's talking to your anxiety and saying, okay, this is what triggers me. This is what I don't like. This is what will make me feel better. And in this period of understanding my anxiety, this is the period when I've actually grown as a person the most. I realized that following a routine is of the most tremendous help while you are going through any kind of a mental health issue. This is also a stage that has taught me gratitude in life. Obviously, I started practicing gratitude as a very conscious practice, that I have to sit down and take out time for gratitude every day. But over this period of just trying to understand this other person called AKA Pawani's anxiety, that's also living simultaneously, that I've truly started being grateful for everything that has happened in the past. and connecting the dots, and realizing that life would not have been the same had anything been even slightly different. This is also a phase that has helped me develop a lot of resilience as a person. And I've realized that, for example, working out, right? A lot of times they say that it is very important you work out. Like all my therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists have said that working out, it will release happy hormones, it will release happy hormones. Definitely working out releases happy hormones, but I think what working out does more in the case of mental health issues is that it makes you a stronger person. It creates discipline in you as a person, and that discipline, that strength is the most important on days when you can't get out of bed, on days when you don't have anxiety, you are normal. It is very easy to get up, go about regular chores, do your morning routine, have a nice breakfast with your family, get to office on time, be nice to everyone around. It's on days when anxiety catches you red-handed that it is difficult to do any of these things. To even get out of bed is difficult, and that is when that discipline, the routine, the strength that working out gives you comes in handy. There used to be days when I would just be in bed for hours contemplating everything that has happened in life. Now every time anxiety happens, it barely takes me 1 minute or 2 minutes to get out of my bed and start my normal routine. Like, okay, this is happening, this can keep happening in the background. So fighting anxiety, or I would rather say dealing with anxiety now, it's not a fight anymore. It's like breathing. I breathe every day. I don't have to put an extra effort to breathe. I don't, or normal activities in a day. That is how I'm dealing with anxiety. It still happens on an everyday basis, but I deal with it more subconsciously now because of these small habits that I have formed. And yes, gratitude is one of the things that has helped the most in forming these habits and sticking to these habits.
How has gratitude played a role in this? How did you bring in gratitude being a major way of you coming over anxiety?
So let me talk about what I was doing when I was in school. I was running this non-profit where we were teaching around 40, 50 kids. I was a kid myself back then, but this is the closest that I came to what an inner calling could be. As I grew up, I had a really good academic score throughout, which is why there was engineering, IAS, this, that. And maybe I really never wanted to do all of that, but I was pretty comfortable abiding by those norms because अच्छे marks aaye rahe hain, everybody wanted to do this, why not, right? What's the harm? And it's like a proven road to success. You do your 11, 12 from science, you pursue engineering, you go to an IIT, you become an IAS officer, so it's all sorted. Anxiety actually changed all of this for me. It threw me at a rock bottom and I had to start from a zero. Even how I spoke, I was an orator throughout my school life. I used to be in debates, and when I was suffering from anxiety, I couldn't even speak properly without stammering. So I really had to start everything from ground zero. And from that ground zero to where I've come now, every day I feel like I'm doing something that I was actually supposed to do. Giving back to community, working with women. This is always what I was supposed to do. I don't think I wanted to be an IS officer ever. I don't think I ever wanted to be an engineer. And I'm only able to pursue this because that happened. And there are a lot of such small things that have happened that have made me who I am or what I'm able to do for others. And that has been the root of gratitude in this entire process. I would not have been nearly as strong as I am. I would have never probably even thought of pursuing spirituality. I was living quite a millennial life. Right? Like, uh, uh, very far away from gratitude or meditation or even asking yourself questions about what is the purpose of my life, what am I even doing, what am I supposed to do. All of these were questions that only happened because of anxiety. नहीं तो मैं कभी पूछती ही नहीं खुद से ये सब.
You channelized the energy of that anxiety.
I tried to. There was no other option. Like, it was more like a do-or-die situation. You had to do something about it.
Varna, I think in situations like you describe, it's very easy to form a kind of an adversarial relationship with yourself. And the fact that you stopped questioning it is, I think, one of the key messages which I'm getting out of this.
And I think it's not like I don't want the answers or I did not want the answers. The thing is that I realized that I will get the answers when I stop questioning it.
Yes. So on this, I want to read this out to you, and that is why I was looking down, because I was searching for this, which someone had sent me, one of my dear friends. It says, "Live everything. Don't search for the answers which could not be given to you now, because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps then someday you will gradually, without even noticing, live your way into the answer." This is by a gentleman called Rainer Rilke.
This is you putting in 2 lines everything I've been trying to explain for so long in words. That's how. Thank you for articulating it so beautifully.
I think these are just beautiful chances. One of my close friends, Vaidi, he sent it to me for some other reason because I was questioning things too much. I think the easiest thing to slip into in these situations is a relationship with yourself which does not have self-esteem. You go away from responsibility. You form certain opinions of yourself which otherwise you wouldn't want to. So I'm very glad that we are having this conversation, and I hope that the way you describe it and the people who face this, and perhaps all of us at some times, someone less, someone a little more, someone on all days, someone only on some days. But I think we just don't need to question things so much. We can live into the questions for some time.
Absolutely. And just like living one day at a time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Yeah. I think we have reached a moment in history, or the times are such that self esteem is not only a very important psychological need, it is also a very important economic need. And I think here a lot of credit to the family in which you are born, to the parents who raised you not like to become an obedient child, but become more of a thinker, question everything, be more self-responsible than being obedient.
And very recent example, right? Like so right now, I've always made it a very conscious choice to not be around people who judge me or who do not accept me for who I am. Like I know I'm a rebel. I know I'm an outlier in a lot of terms. So if there is somebody who is not comfortable with that, I'm okay not being around them. And some of these people are all of my mother's side family. My parents have actually gone for a vacation and my entire mom's family is there. Okay. And then everybody's just trying to incentivize me. We'll go, we'll do this, we'll do that. And I told my mom, and my mom understands this, which is the most beautiful part. I told her that, listen, I know, but I just don't feel belonged there. I don't think that they really understand the kind of person I am and are willing to accept me for who I am. I feel that there is a lot of judgment, and I can just sense that judgment. And for that reason, I just don't want to go because it is going to take away a lot of energy from me. I'm sure I'll meet them, like, sooner or later, kahin na kahin, kisi na kisi ki shaadi hai, kuch to hoga, to mil hi lenge. But I don't think my idea of having a vacation is with them, right? Like, it is supposed to recharge me. It is not supposed to deplete me of energy. And my parents really understood that, and they did not force me even once to no, but this is your family. How can you not be with? Which happens all the time, right? You're supposed to be with your family. You're supposed to be with your relatives. They really respect me a lot that way, and they know, okay, that if she's saying this, she must have thought this through, which is why she doesn't want to come. And that stand for me with the other people in the family. And these small steps of putting myself first have actually helped me rebuild my self-esteem a lot. Every time I would listen to others and do things that deplete me of my energy, these little things that I've done to stand up for myself, to stand up for protecting my energy, safeguarding my individuality, respecting me for who I am, have really helped me just love myself more. And that is also a very important part of coming to terms with my anxiety. And I see it evolve into, like I said, right? Like the two people, there's me, there's Pawani's anxiety, there's Pawani and Pawani's anxiety, and these two people don't see eye to eye with each other at all. They hate each other. And I'm gradually coming to terms with it. And in the future, I want to be one with it. I don't want to feel like that these are two different people anymore, or that there is something that is inside me that is different from me. I want to feel completely one with it. And if I want to feel completely one with it, I need to love myself and put myself first, treat myself with compassion. And these little things that you do actually take that away from you. Being in places where you don't feel belong. And I have no reason to be in a place where I don't feel belong when there are so many people who love me so much and are always there for me without any agenda, just there for me unconditionally. Then why should I be among anybody who makes me feel unbelong?
Yeah, I think that has been very instrumental part of your not slipping into any kind of loneliness or any kind of disowning anything about your own self. I think your parents have been a key role in that, and a lot of reverence and a lot of pranams to them from my side.
Thank you. I'm going to pass it on to them. I'm really blessed to have them as my parents. And I know, I think a lot of people my age, younger than me, are these days going through mental health issues. And if their parents are listening to this, please get in touch with my parents. I don't know how they do it. I think it takes a lot more courage. When you asked me if did I go through fear when I was in Ladakh, I think that's not the question that matters. It's I always think about the fear that my parents had when I went to Ladakh,
True, true.
and they still decided to overcome that fear. Like for me, it was just living life right now. Like I didn't have an option. But for them to send their child all alone to Ladakh at 18, riding a bike, for 3 days, I did not even have a SIM. So I had no contact with them because Ladakh had postpaid SIMs and I had a prepaid SIM. I did not know this. I remembered I was going on a solo trip to Bangalore and we were traveling. I was traveling in first AC and there were three men in that chamber and there was just me, and all of these three men were much older to me, and this was the first time, right? Like this was going to be a 26-28 hour journey. And when my dad entered there and my dad looked here and there, he was like, okay, yeah, koi bhi nahi hai bandi. My daughter is going to be traveling alone with these three men. I don't know who they are. And I saw that look on his face and he was flushed. He was not comfortable, and he still did not say anything to me. He told me, so they are actually the ones who have overcome fear much more than I have.
So, Pavni, I need to have a conversation with them. Can we set it up?
Definitely.
I think we will go more into the story behind the story by talking to them.
Yeah, I don't know. They're just phenomenal.
I'm so glad that you are in such a family, and I hope that listening to this story, I think this whole peer pressure with parents today of having live up their children to a certain way and a certain method or a certain threshold, I think that puts them in such a dizzy to do things without even thinking. That whole part of thinking is just totally absent.
I agree. Um, and the respect for your child's individuality and seeing that even though it might be your child, but they have their own thoughts that they might want to lead their life in their own way, that they might want to pursue their own, maybe religious interests or intellectual freedom, probably, to be able to do that.
आप मुझसे कह रही थी आपने जिज्ञासा का कॉन्वर्सेशन सुना था
हाँ
और
जी.
जिज्ञासा ने एक बात कही थी that there are so many children, as many children as adults in the society, but their voice has no place.
Correct.
And if their voice has no place, how will they have individuality?
And Jigyasa is doing a fabulous work in bringing out those voices.
Yes, yes, in building that self-esteem in children and giving that creative confidence, I think, and at that in those layers of society.
In fact, I remember as a child, even when I used to go for debates, right? Every time there would be inter-school debates, everything that we wrote and that we were going to say in our debate was so scripted by our teachers, right? Like our teachers would actually go through our debates 10 times. And there were so many times when I had to cut down on what I thought about that particular issue because my teachers told me that no, this is not what you're supposed to write. This is what will help you win. And I actually got back to my principal from that school a couple of years back, telling him that this should not have happened. You should have just let me lose, but you should have let me speak what I wanted to. And after that, I've actually developed a very good relationship with my principal and from my school.
Yeah, just looking for something which I had pulled up, anticipating that I may need to refer to this when I talk to you. This is the obedient student versus the responsible student. And it says, let us contrast more traditional ways of teaching with the kind of teaching that nurtures self-esteem by way of a set of comparisons. And some of the key comparisons which have been done over here. The obedient student is motivated by external factors such as the need to please authority and win extrinsic approval. The responsible student is characterized by internal factors such as the need to weigh choices and experience personal consequences. Then the obedient student lacks confidence to function effectively in absence of authority, lacks initiative, waits for orders. The responsible student is more confident to function effectively in the absence of authority and takes initiative. The obedient student has feelings of helplessness and teacher dependency. The responsible students have a personal sense of empowerment and independence is common. The obedient one operates from an external value system that may not be personally appropriate and may even be harmful. The responsible student operates from internal value system while being considerate to the needs and values of others. The obedient student makes poor choices to avoid disapproval or abandonment. The responsible students may make poor choices to experience personal consequences and to satisfy curiosity.
And we are actually punished for being responsible students in our education system.
We are encouraged to be obedient.
Yeah, even in the letters, we're supposed to write "your" obediently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even parents today, हमारे time में तो होता ही था, but even parents and teachers today, in a parent-teacher meeting, your child doesn't listen and your child is very obedient. These are the two most common statements.
I think now that we're using these words, I think my parents were very comfortable with the idea of me not being obedient. So obviously, parents-teacher meetings, I used to be told that like, she's good with everything, but she's just not obedient. Like she doesn't listen. She's good with everything. So we can't give her less marks. Even if we cut her marks, she'll still top. So she's good with everything, all sports activities, but she doesn't listen. And there used to be so many times when I would just be standing outside the class. I would be pulled out of the assembly. So I was a very notorious kid by those standards. And there were a lot of complaints that obviously went through my parents. Some of them were very humiliating for them. But despite of that, they never really told me to be obedient. Never. I think not even once I remember my mother or my dad telling me ki you need to be obedient.
I think this just goes on to say that mental health problems, they cannot be pinned down to an individual. I think it's just that whole environment, that ecosystem of how you have grown up, of what is around you, that matters so much in the way you will deal with this situation.
And I'll tell you, so all for the until 2017 or 18, until I kept questioning why was this happening to me, and it was coined by all my health experts as generalized anxiety disorder, because we couldn't really figure out what was the reason. And it was only very recently that in one of my therapy sessions, very subconsciously, it came out that was the actual reason of my anxiety. And it was, I've never spoken about this before, but it was, I think, a sexual assault that happened right before my 12th class started. And it was very subconsciously embedded somewhere. It never came out in any of my discussions. And I was going through a very rigorous health regime, right? Like I would have sessions every week. It was only when I stopped all my therapies and I made it more intermittent, I stopped questioning, I was ready to completely accept myself, that this occurred. And it came out that, okay, this is the reason. This is probably what actually triggered this off all these years. So it was quite a revelation and a relief also at the same time.
Appreciate the sharing and the vulnerability which you bring forth. And I think I can only be in deep gratitude to you for saying this, because I think this is going to be so helpful to so many people who would be willing to listen to this, and it would be so encouraging for them that this is not end of the world and there is a different way to look about it. Thank you, Pawani.
I'll be really glad if this can actually encourage others to live their life more headstrong.
So you talked about spirituality. What do you do?
To be honest, right, there is nothing much that I'm doing very actively to pursue it. I do and try to read more on spirituality, ask more questions. So currently, I'm just living up to the curiosity that I have. I really want to start pursuing it in a more holistic manner and make it a part of my routine. I do try to meditate. I have tried different forms of meditation. I've practiced art of living, Buddhist chanting, and whatnot. But there is none that I've actually stuck to. So that's not something that I'm proud of. But also, there was none that I actually felt like sticking to and doing this every day. Recently, started reading a little bit of Bhagavad, and also on your recommendation, I started reading The Fall of Human Intellect and a little more from Vedanta studies. But yes, that's more or less about it as of now, and I'm really hoping I can pursue it more actively.
Aatmnirbhar was started before 4 years. You started facing these problems on the anxiety front before about 10 years. So, what was the relationship between the anxiety, the mental health problems, and Aatmnirbhar? How did Aatmnirbhar happen? Was it a result of that?
It was not a direct result of that, but I think my anxiety, like I said, really helped me question my purpose. Okay, so when everybody said that after doing all of this academic itna sara mehnat karke you want to come back to Mathura and start a driving school, I was very headstrong that this is what I want to do. And I don't care if you think it is small, but I think that right now this is my purpose. And I don't care if the company that I'm working with currently is valued and if I take an exit, this will be so and so. But I want to do this now, and I think that this is going to create a lot of impact. And that was a result of my anxiety, that I could form those kind of perspective and approach because anxiety had happened. So yes, that is what I say. I like at the end of the day, I'm able to connect all dots, and which is why I feel very grateful when I look back. But to be honest, there were days when you don't feel grateful. Like you can feel grateful when you look at a span of 10 years and you see, okay, all the good things that have happened. But what do you do about gratitude on days when you are struggling to even breathe properly like a normal function? You're breathing like it is difficult. uh, and if you can try and find 3 things to be grateful for, even on those days, trust me, life will get better. You won't even realize. But वो जो सबसे difficult days होते हैं, on those days, just being grateful for having a bed, those little things on those days, and feeling grateful for those days, for those little things, is really what helped me survive on those days.
You just said that on my recommendation, you're reading this book, Fall of Human Intellect. But I think if I look at what has happened with you in terms of the way your parents have handled this whole situation, the way they have grown you up, the intellect is at such a high level in your household.
Yeah, and which is why intellect and intelligence and education are very different things.
Yes.
There's nothing to do with each other.
Yes, absolutely. Well said. Intellect and intelligence are indeed very different things.
There's just one thing that I would like to say, that in this entire journey, I've received a lot of compassion from the people around me that has helped me going. To be very honest, when somebody asked me what are the challenges that you faced in general, like even with Aatmnirbhar or in dealing with my mental health, I find it very challenging to think about the challenges. मुझे याद ही नहीं आते. Like I only remember most of the good things that happened and how I get here, because I was never really focusing on the challenges. I was always focusing on getting better, getting through the day, the good things. But it was all possible because I was receiving a lot of love and compassion from others. There was that brought in a lot of positivity, and I was able to give that compassion in turn to myself. And I think the other day, I think I was saying that I want to be a more compassionate leader in the future. And at that point, I did not have an answer as to why. But thinking about today's session actually helped me understand why I want to be a more compassionate leader, because I have received a lot of compassion in my life and I want to be able to give it back to the people around me. With the same unconditionality that I have received. And I know how truly life changing it can be from somebody who's going through struggles that they cannot really put into words.
And is it that through Aatmnirbhar you are already paying it forward?
No, I don't think Aatmnirbhar has much to do about me paying forward for my anxiety or my struggles. Aatmnirbhar is truly about empowering women. Like I said, I come from a very conservative overall ecosystem, even though my parents are not that way. But even as a child, right, like I remember the girls around me in my neighborhood were not allowed to talk to me because I would be a negative influence on them, apparently, because I used to ride a bicycle. I know how truly liberating riding a bike has been for me. I always remember that Ladakh incident. I know how truly liberating riding a scooter has been for my mother. Her life has changed. You cannot even think about empowerment if you can't go from point A to point B. Thing that empowers you, you need to go out and seek empowerment. To seek empowerment, you need to go and get out. You need to be able to move. And that is what Aatmnirbhar is for me. Aatmnirbhar is also a way for me to bring these stories of these women closer to myself, right? It is channelizing, it is really empowered women and the others who are not so empowered, and bridging the gap between those stories. So yes, Aatmnirbhar is covering a lot of distances for me and for the women who are learning to ride scooters, and their lives just changing because of that. It is a very small thing, but it just transforms their lives completely.
Two stories of impact from Aatmnirbhar.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, just even right now, right, the lady who is our house help, her daughter is one of our trainers, and she used to tag along with her mother. So in 2017, when I started Aatmnirbhar, she used to just tag along with her mother and come home because she really liked my mother a lot. So my mother would teach her to the ride. And then when I came back from Pune and I was talking about starting Aatmnirbhar, she overheard and she was like, "Didi, mere ko bhi scooty chalani aati hai, so why don't you make me a trainer?" And I literally just laughed it off at that point because she could not even speak. Like, you ask her what is your name, she would just like ha ha. Like that's how underconfident she was. And then gradually she did become a trainer. She started earning her own money. I remember 2.5 years. I received a call at 12:31 a.m. in the night. Dad received a call that her brother had beaten her up because she bought her own scooty in her own name. Okay. And they just wanted her to get married right away. And because how could she buy a scooty in her own name when there were male members in the family? And she comes from a village nearby. Very recently, she bought her own plot of land, a plot of land in her own name. She is marrying somebody of her own choice, which is a very big deal. It is that agency that I am not going to marry somebody just because you think I should marry them. The kind of agency that these girls are practicing right now, that the women are practicing right now, and it's in very small things. We have taught women who would go learn scooters in saris with pallus, not even take their pallus off. And I remember one such lady who used to call her husband Gunu ke Papa. Like, not even Gunu ke Papa. Okay, so we remember her as Gunu ki Mummy and Gunu ke Papa. So she came to our office one day after she had learned, and she said, "Gunu ke Papa, आज मुझे सूट दिलाने ले जा रहे हैं." So उन्होंने बोला है कि अभी तुम स्कूटी चला लेते हो अच्छे से, तुम साड़ी पहन के मत चलाओ, सूट पहन के चलाओ. और दिस इज अ लेडी जिन्होंने अपनी पूरी ट्रेनिंग घूंघट पहन कर करी है, पल्लू करके करी है. Especially when it comes to feminism and women empowerment, that sari to suit revolution is going on in tier 2, tier 3 cities. I have seen women in my own family are switched from sari to suit, and it is not about what they're wearing, it is about how what they're wearing makes them feel. And a suit makes these women feel really empowered. So these little stories really warm my heart and keep us going. There are a lot of such stories. There has to be another podcast for it all together.
No, but just by starting with the scooty, you put them on a path of escalating empowerment all through their life. So I think that is wonderful. Good, Pavni. Look forward to being in Mathura sometime, talking to your parents face to face, and hearing their story, and also doing the parikrama with you.
Definitely. And I really look forward to hosting you. And I need company over the parikrama also.
Thank you so much, Pavni. for being on this podcast, for being on Small Big Wins. And more than anything else, Pavni, I respect you so much for talking to me and bringing out your own story completely. And within the story today, sharing the source or the most difficult moments of the story. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I would just
And
like to end by saying, when we fight a block, it grows stronger. When we acknowledge, experience, and accept it, it starts melting. And that's you, Pavni.
thank you so much once again, Harsh, for providing me with the safe space that I could talk about all of these issues. There are so many feelings, so many incidents. So the last 10 years are a lot to digest in retrospect. And I did not think that I would be able to put it in words or talk about it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.